Scarlet Moon Creations, and I am back with a new video, and this video is all about journaling. This is for my letter J with the YouTube ABC challenge, and this may be a long one. I'll try to keep it not super long, but I've done classes on this topic for a couple of years now, and it is one that is near and dear to my heart. Journaling. Journaling is something that psychology and philosophy has found to be very helpful for a person's mental health, and having a regular journaling process, writing down your thoughts and your feelings, is just a healthy aspect. It's one way of letting go of things, getting things out there, not, suppressing emotions, not keeping things in. It's just better for your health overall. And that is also good for you spiritually. Not just, getting things out there. Though that's helpful, like, in my experience and from what I've seen with other people, having a regular journaling practice, whatever type of journaling, when you are new to paganism in general or witchcraft in general, and you're not sure what tradition you would like to go into or what works for you. And honestly, even outside of paganism, if you're maybe thinking about switching your religion or diving deeper into your religion or spirituality in general, journaling can help you, get your thoughts together, pull together the various pieces of that practice that you are either in already or would like to get into, and it helps with your memory, helping you remember the basic tenets, the for lack of a better word, rules to follow, the bits and bobs of the particular religion or tradition. So it's not only helpful to those of us who are pagan or witches. We're not special when it comes to journaling. It's just that's going to be my focus for this video, which should be no surprise to you. Now, the class I teach in it's called Magical Record Keeping and Journaling. And to me, those are magical record keeping and journaling are kind of two different but very related things. I meant to say magical journaling and spiritual magical record keeping and spiritual journaling. Sorry, I just have changed the name several times over the years as I've adjusted to what I think is better. Fair warning, early on, I am like a journal addict, stationery addict, planner addict. I love all that stuff and all of the elements that come with it, like pens and markers and the various types of paper and all of that. But that's not going to be too much of the focus with this video. I just want to go over how we as pagans can use journaling as a spiritual practice and just a spiritual practice on its own, but also as a, what's the word I'm looking for, a helper, an assistant to your regular general pagan practice, whatever that is. Excuse us. So as I was saying, record keeping and journaling are like two different things in my opinion, though very, very, very closely related. Obviously, use a book. And these are my notes for the video today. You use a book with both, or since it is 2018, there's also blogging or vlogging. Um, there's also audio recording yourself if that is what you choose to do. So it doesn't have to be a physical book if you don't want it to be, and that is perfectly okay. Whatever works best for you and what you feel comfortable with doing in your practice is what is good. As long as you're not harming yourself or anyone else, it should be all good. Now, paper cuts aside, guys. I can't help you with that. So the difference between record keeping and journaling to me, journaling is kind of like free form writing, maybe note taking, but for the most part, it's like you're getting out your thoughts, your opinions on whatever is whatever. Record keeping, on the other hand, is more like what a grimoire is. For the most part, a grimoire or a book of shadows or a book of mirrors, or maybe not a book of mirrors, book of shadows, a grimoire, these are books of magic, if you're unfamiliar. And mostly they contain reference material, lists, correspondences, associations, maybe things like songs, poems. If you're Wiccan, things like the Charge of the Goddess would be in your Book of Shadows, and that's more of a record keeping, so you can go back and reference it. This is all reference material, and while you can go back through your spiritual journal and reference things that you have written before, that's not its main purpose, if that makes sense. So that's the difference between the two. So in the pagan community, in the esoteric occult communities, books of magic are what are used for record keeping and journaling. For it's, to me, their magic book of magic is like a umbrella term for under which Book of Shadows or grimoire is. So books of magic have existed for as long as man has been writing things down and had paper or whatever else to write things down with, and the tools to write. Generally, most books of magic are just called grimoires. Some famous ones, the Testament of Solomon, the Key of Solomon, the Lesser Key of Solomon, the Petit Albert, the Grand Grimoire, the Magus. You can look these all up online. They are all available for free to whoever so chooses to look at them. They have lots of symbols and keys and rituals, and so much more in them. And I'll get into in a second more of what is it that you can keep in there. So yeah, these are books of magic, grimoires, that are hundreds of years old, if not thousands of years old. I don't know off the top of my head the years for each of the ones I listed, but they were like this compendium of reference material that these magicians or philosophers in some cases, or whatever they wanted to call themselves at the time, that's where they kept their information that they would either reference back to again, or as a record keeping, like this is what I did, when I did it, how I did it, what I used to do it, kind of thing. It sounds like a recipe book, doesn't it? In some cases, it is, or it is not. A Book of Shadows, usually more specific to the witchcraft community, particularly Wiccans. I have this feeling that there's a slow shift to make Book of Shadows kind of like a general term, but I don't quote me on that. It just kind of feels like it from what I'm seeing going on around me. So it's a book of magic. It generally contains spells, magical information, similar to a grimoire. There's more than one type of Book of Shadows. Most people usually refer to one or two types, though there might be others. One of being there's a traditional coven Book of Shadows, where that groups, that coven, that circle, all of their beliefs, their rituals, their deities, spell works, sometimes with pictures and fancy borders and calligraphy or whatever. If you've watched the TV show Charmed, the Charmed Book of Shadows, that trifold book is a great fictional example. And then there's the second type of Book of Shadows. It's more like a workbook or a journal, and it can have all of the things I listed for the other type of Book of Shadows, but it would also include your thoughts, your conclusions, recipes, that kind of thing. This is more personal. Like a group, coven, circle, Book of Shadows, or grimoire is not really something that every member would be writing their thoughts on. You know, what did they experience in the most recent ritual that was done? That wouldn't be written there, because there would be a lot of writing. For practical purposes, this is just for the coven. Whereas your personal Book of Shadows can have whatever you want in it. And that's what I really want everyone to get from this video, if nothing else. You can put whatever you want in your Book of Shadows, your grimoire, your spiritual journal, whatever you want to call it, your book of magic. What goes in there is what works for you. If it's personal to you, then that's how it should be. Personal. So your Book of Shadows, your Book of Magic, your grimoire, whatever you decide to call it, it can have everything I've talked about so far all in one book, or you can split them up into smaller books. Or you can split the reference material, like the rituals, the correspondences, the spells, into one book and have like your thoughts and conclusions and feelings about the workings you've done, or the spiritual work that you've done, the spell work you've done, in another book. And that particular book is sometimes called a book of mirrors. I don't know how popular that is now. I know about 10 years ago, having like the two separate, having Book of Shadows and Book of Mirrors, that was the thing. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how popular it is right now, but it's an option. Just wanted to let you know. The term Book of Shadows is said to have been created by Gerald Gardner. He claims it has an older origin. There's no proof. That's what happens, honestly, when time passes and history goes on. Not always are there good reference to the past that lasts through the test of time. So it is what it is. Also, during Valiente has said that he got it from a newspaper article. Not my circus, not my monkeys. I'm not getting into that argument or discussion. It is what it is. So they've books. It's a book of magic, like I mentioned. The purpose of the Book of Shadows or the Book of Mirrors is to keep a record, right? You want to put down whatever it is. If it's just like corresponding the tarot cards with astrology, then so you don't have to constantly Google it or pull out a random post-it note or another reference book. You just have that in your Book of Shadows and you know where it is. There's also so you can reference your thoughts spiritually. In my opinion, whatever your spirituality focus is, whatever your religion is, usually we're just trying to figure out why we're here, what's our purpose, and then go towards that. And so keeping track in a journal, in a spiritual journal, is of you're changing over time. You're changing thoughts, you're changing feelings, the epiphanies you have when, your tarot cards come for you and are like, wake up girl, because this is how it is and you need to stop that. That kind of thing. Like, you often want to go back sometimes personally and go over to see the differences of how you were then and how you are now. So there's that. And then as far as spell work goes, a lot of that is, like I said, very similar to like making recipes. So you want to make a note of, how these ingredients mixed and how that particular spell, what was the conclusion, how did it turn out, how long did it take, and then so you can possibly recreate it in the future if you do this for other people, whether it be out of the goodness of your heart or for business. Not that business can't be out of the goodness of your heart. You want to have that record of, so you know what works for you, so you can recommend it for others or do it for someone else with their permission. So that's why you might consider this all reference material. If you want to keep a good book of magical book, spiritual journal, as you can see, I'm just like using these terms interchangeably. You should organize it, and organize it in the best way that works for you. For me, I have found that having index or a table of contents is the best option. Because I'm not a fan of 3-ring binders, and I'm also not a fan of constantly turning the page, because I know what's in this book. So that's me. So you can make lists, charts, you can handwrite stuff, you can print things out, paste it in, or print it out on sticker paper. There's various different sizes of sticker paper. You can have it on your computer, like I said. OneNote is a really good free computer program and app that you can use as a book of magic, as a digital grimoire. Same, if you want to keep it online, something like Tumblr maybe, or some other blog like WordPress. Also, for videos, YouTube is probably your best and easiest bet, though there are other video things like Vimeo, Dailymotion. So you can put pictures and drawings. Again, there are stickers out there. There's you can draw stuff on your own if that's your thing. You can draw borders. You can I mean, have you guys seen Benabel Wen's grimoire book of magic? I forget exactly what she calls it, but it's gorgeous. Um, it's gorgeous. That's goals. But not everybody has to do that. You can print stuff out from the internet, but please be sure to give credit where credit is due. If you did not create the images and text that you put in your grimoire and then decided to share it on the internet, even if it's for free, those people made that stuff and you should give them the credit for the work they've done. Even in your physical journal, it's good to keep track of where your sources are from. Even if it's from the internet, just either print out or write down the URL, because sometimes you want to go back and check that source. Maybe there's more information on another page on that website. Same thing with any books that you have. Maybe you got that information from an astrology book that you have on your bookshelf and you just don't want to constantly be pulling that book out. That's fine, but you know, keeping a record of where you got that information from is always a good thing. Always, believe me. What can you use for your grimoire, your book of magic, your spiritual journal, your book of shadows? Anything. Starting with books, paper. Here is a book that I got like 8 years ago now. Yeah, 8 years ago, maybe even 9 years ago, and it's a bound book, but it has like a cloth cover, and I like it. I like this size for honestly for journaling and note taking. I bought it at Barnes and Noble. This is a Moleskine. If it'll focus on the name there. There we go. This is a Moleskine insert, very thin. It only cost a couple of dollars. This was my tarot journal, my readings journal, I should say, though it's mostly tarot and oracle readings for last year. I filled this entire thing up this last year. And it's decent. It's a grid paper on the inside. So if I decided to draw out spreads, it was simple. This is a Recollections Mixed Media Journal that I use as an art journal. And this is not just for like my pagan or spiritual stuff, but all kinds of arting. So I have quotes in here. The moon is high at the witching hour. Many of you should know that one. Here's another one. This is a drawing of the Nine of Pentacles from the Deviant Moon Tarot deck that I did. A painting. So yeah, if art journaling is your thing, then it could be spiritual art journaling. And this has, mixed media paper, which will take like watercolor and stuff. This lovely book here is my current readings journal for tarot and astrology readings. And I've got some of my handmade oracle cards from the Make This Oracle Deck Challenge in here. And some of the readings I've done on fancy paper right here. So yeah, it's another bound book. It's kind of fancy, sorry. For the motorcycle. Kind of fancy. It's got this like brushed velvet cover. This is just a folder with paper, and everything in here is all of my notes and printouts and uh, handouts, everything for when I took my Reiki classes to become a master Reiki practitioner. So, and like I said, printouts of paper just in a folder, and notes that I wrote on regular paper. This is a bunch of printer paper that I wrote on for when I was first learning astrology. Go. This is a book that is falling apart, but it was made at Staples by Luna Roja. The Kitchen with the Book of Shadows. Well, that's not something you see every day. Yeah, from the Wiccan Family Temple here in New York City, and it's a great book. I filled it up. This is where I started making my recipes for my bath magic, body scrubs, bath soaps, and ritual oils and incense for Scarlet Moon Creations. So you can make something like this yourself, like Muna did, and either just have it or sell it like she did. There's a couple of spiral notebooks. Again, bought these in Barnes and Nobles. These are more journals, so I just have like a lot of notes from classes I took, meditations I wrote, classes I taught. Again, these are all like pagan related stuff. This one is so old it's falling apart. Like I can't like put it back together without everything falling out, so I won't. And it's just like full of my notes from when I first started learning about witchcraft and paganism. Some classes I took, handouts tucked in there, all of that good stuff. Rituals, dream interpretation, my thoughts from the dreams I had at the time, all of that. My current spiritual journal, which you've seen in some of the other videos. This one I have set up more like a bullet journal. Got my index in the front. This is all the stuff that's in here so far, and I gotta update it. And yeah, so I have rituals in here, meditations, what else? Recipes. So whatever type of book, whatever type of paper, keep in mind what you want to do to that paper. So like the art journal that I have here, it has mixed media paper, which is not the best, to be perfectly honest, but it's okay for watercolor. If I used any of these other regular papers, they would be mush because they can't take the watercolor. But I've learned in the last through 2 to 3 years that I really enjoy art journaling, and it's a spiritual practice for me. Drawing, painting, these things that are spiritual to me, and if nothing else, including color on my pages because I love it. So yeah, the same thing with like your pens, pencils, markers, crayons, paint. If you want to use them, make sure they go well with the paper that you pick. I personally like color magic. Color has, long before I started getting into paganism and witchcraft, color has always been a big focus and influence in my life. So I consciously include it in my spiritual journaling, my magical journaling, and my record keeping, picking pens and inks that match the colors of the ritual that I'm writing, or the spell work that I'm writing, or the moon sign that I'm talking about. That's all important to me. Or In some cases, they reflect how I'm feeling, like when I'm doing writing down my dreams or writing out how I feel after a meditation, that kind of thing. Picking out that particular color pen just feels right to me. Um, but that's me. So there's that. I have this goal. There are these gemstone inks for writing, for as I can see it. Here we go. For calligraphy pens and fountain pens. I don't see my fountain pen right now, so can't show it to you. But they are Daniel Smith inks, and they are made from crystals crushed down, and I would definitely love to include those. There are Daniel Smith paints as well that I would like to get that have the same quality. So there's that. One day. That's me. Anyway, let's move on to the things you want to include in your spiritual journal, book of magic. Things like information about your tradition. Um, Whether it's Wicca, paganism, the holidays, your tools that you use, the box and S box if you're a witch, your tools that you use, your deities that you follow, any spirits, let me see, your rituals, your spells and spell work, any handouts or printouts that you have, your notes from any classes or lessons that you take. So like, I'm in a coven. We get lessons. And that's all I can say. Maybe other classes, notes from books that you bought for any occult, esoteric, paganism topics. Let's see, pictures, your recipes, your sources, like I mentioned, including the books, pictures of herbs, divination tools, altars, magical symbols, things you want to learn more about. Right, and obviously you want blank pages so you can fill things in. Some other books you might want to help you with your record keeping. And again, this is more focused on the record keeping side of things. Sorry, I think mosquitoes trying to get to me. Okay. These can be included in your personal book of magic or spiritual journal, or they can be separate. It's up to you. There are things like a dream journal, your divination tarot journal, a meditation journal, a recipe book, a song book, maybe a book list or an inventory list. Just real quick, a dream journal, you record your dreams and your conclusions about them, any symbols that make sense to you to help you. Having a dream journal helps train your mind to remember your dreams later on more readily. Then similar, a meditation journal is as you practice meditation, you want to, one, have a record of what meditation you did and when you did it, probably why you did it, but also, again, you can include your thoughts, how you felt, what you saw, what you learned through your meditation, and again, keeping this record helps you train your mind to observe your meditation better in the future. And to expand on kind of like a meditation journal, you can do similarly for like astral projection, past life regressions, seance experiences. You can create create similar journals for all of those, or have them all in the same journal if that's what you choose. Tarot journal or divination journal, like the one I have here and the bigger one that I'm using now. Keep a record of all of your readings, keep a record of spreads, keep a record of your decks, deck interviews, keep a record of your personal feelings and meaning behind each card if you so choose. If you do readings for other people, it's definitely a good idea to probably keep a record of that. But yeah, just, recording what readings you did, what cards you did, when you did them, what decks you used, and your thoughts on the readings and the outcomes, like what happened in the future. Did things correlate with the cards that you saw? And then it's the same for any other type of divination that you use. A recipe book is a collection of all your magical recipes, from incense to candle making, ritual baths, ritual inks, because you can make your own ink, sachet powders, dream pillows, whatever have you. Also, and of course, your cakes and ale for your rituals. If you use them, we need to rehydrate. We need to get our energy back up by eating and drinking. Your offerings, if you make them for shrines or altars, same thing. You still want to keep a recipe of those as well. Kitchen magic, if you do it. Songbook would be like a collection of songs and chants that you use for rituals, spells, meditations, etc. You probably don't need an entire book, but I don't know that. Maybe, you're a musical witch or magician, and music is a very huge part of your practice, so having an entire song book is important to you. But maybe you just need a few pages in another journal. Everyone's practice is different. A book list or a collection of all the magical books you own, whether they be ebooks or physical books, is probably helpful as well. The ones you have, the ones you own, maybe the ones you borrowed from the library, also the ones you would like to have or like to read. To be read list. An inventory list would probably be helpful if you are very much like me and you have a lot of herbs, you have a lot of oils, you have a lot of stuff. But I mostly have a lot of herbs and oils and maybe a lot of candles too. To keep track of your magical ingredients, your spiritual tools. If you own a lot of crystals, you probably want to keep an inventory of what you have and the size and what type. Inventory, though, is particularly important if you have a lot of goods that either go bad quickly or you go through a lot, like the herbs and oils and that kind of thing. Like, those things don't last forever, so eventually they will run out, and it's easier on me to keep track of how much I got left. You can, all of that again in your general spiritual journal and your book of shadows or grimoire, or you can have it separate. It's up to you. Things to keep in mind, no matter what anyone says or the way they do things, the way you decide to do your magical book or your spiritual journal, record keeping is your way. Everybody's way is going to be a little bit different, and that's okay. It's also okay to borrow from others. It's very similar to the planner and regular journaling communities. Like, there are tons of videos on here, YouTube, and it's to share and share alike, to get ideas for spreads and things like that. That you can use to make your life a little bit easier and to make yourself more understanding. but there's no wrong or right way, is the most important part of that. Again, when using other people's spells, songs, recipes, information, pictures, yes, they're pictures, even if you are not sharing it on like social media, or no one is ever gonna see your spiritual journal or book of magic because it is private and no one else can see it. It is very important to keep track of the sources. And if you ever do share it, even if not for money, again, cite those sources, give them credit, because the credit is due. It should be no thought to do otherwise in your mind. And your book of shadows, your grimoire, your magical book, spiritual journal, they're not going to be perfect right out of the box. These are ongoing, constantly, constantly changing things. You're not going to have that perfect first page, and the first time out of the box. They will evolve. Some information will not be important to you 10 years from now. Some stuff you will just have in your mind and you won't need it written down anymore because you just know. And that's great. But there's no need to hesitate to buy that perfect book with those perfect pages only to not touch it because you don't want to mess it up. Like, it took me a while to really get that. Like, I wasn't so hung up on it, but for a while I was hung up on how I wanted to put the information down on pages, and like I waited for a while because my handwriting had gotten a little bit bad, still better than a lot of people, but it got a little bit bad, and I was like, no, I have to practice my handwriting first. And that's okay, but like, again, go check out the Key of Solomon. Go check out the Petit Albert. Go check out the Magus. These are all, again, the ancient grimoires, books of magic. Go look at them. The handwriting is not perfect. It's not. And if you're looking at things like, not necessarily books of magic, but I have this thing where I really, really love illuminated lettering, and things like the Mabinogion, which is a mythological book filled with old Welsh myths. This is a book. These books and its copies were originally created by monks who spent all day after day, year after year, painstakingly creating these illuminated letters and illuminated borders and writing everything as perfect as possible. And I have a life. And once I really had that thought, I realized it's okay that my book of shadows or my spiritual grimoire does not look like, my spiritual journal does not look like that, because I'm not going to spend all day just to create that. I will do my best to make it legible, and that is all that matters to me. You might want to try a little harder if your intent is to pass this book down as a legacy to your children and your family practice, then that is important. The same if you're copying something for a coven book of shadows, or a circle, if it's not, an official coven or whatever. If it's for a group, if other people are going to read it, you want to make it so that they can read it and understand what's being written. But your magical knowledge will change, your spiritual knowledge will change, and it's always going to be a work in progress. Your spiritual journal, your book of magic, and that's why I recommend using books that you can add to. A lot of people like 3-ring binders nowadays. Not really a fan. Sorry, but that's me. You can use, like, I have this ginormous guy here, and it's not closed properly right now, but instead of a 3-ring binder, these are screw posts. So I can unscrew it and add new pages to it. And this die is 12 by 17. But I have pages in here that I can use interactively, like this. On month ahead spread, I can place the cards on the pages and they will fit. I got that idea from Kristen at Over the Moon Academy, her magical playbook. I'll link in the description down below. As for secrecy, it's up to you how private you want your spiritual journal and your book of shadows to be. People tend to be more private on the journaling side of things rather than the record keeping side of things, because one is a bit more personal and specific to you, your experiences, how did the spell work out for you and your very specific situation, whereas a spell is kind of, depending on how you did it, devoid of personalization in some cases. That's why you see tons of them all over the internet. Same with sigils and other symbols, like people hand them out like candy. And that's not, I'm not speaking badly about anyone, it just happens. That's something that they are good at, and that's a service that they provide, whether paid or for free. Some people use special languages, specific alphabets, like the Theban alphabet. Some people use runes, some people use ciphers and codes. It's all up to you. Some people purposefully write in gibberish, or not in gibberish, chicken scratch, so others can't read them. You can also do a ritual or spell to block anyone from, getting curious if they happen to see it and opening your spiritual journal or book of shadows. There are book blessings and that you can use all over the internet for this purpose. For the digital age, if you do a vlog, you can upload it as private and no one else will see it but you. If you do a blog, which is written, again, you can upload your blog post privately and no one will ever see it. Or you could just use, again, an app like OneNote, write what you gotta write, and either seal it with a password or whatever have you, or just use it only on a computer that just you yourself use, and that no one else knows the password to even get on the computer, let alone into OneNote. These journals, books of magic, are tools just like everything else. You don't have to have one, but it's probably nice that you do. They're just like your athame if you use one, your altar if you have one, or your shrine. You can use it as one as well. If you draw, you can draw like an altar space, and that way you can take it with you. So you should cleanse and consecrate them, bless them, like you would any of your other tools. And yeah, so that is everything I have to say about journaling for now. Spiritual journaling and magical record keeping. Let me know if you have any questions, any thoughts. How do you use journaling in your spiritual practice? Did anything I showed you or mentioned spark up an idea? I will definitely very, very soon be offering journals and journal pages at Scarlet Moon Creations. The journal pages in particular I'm working on right now as free downloads to anyone who is subscribed to my Red Library. So click the subscription link down below to subscribe, and you get instant free access to all of the journal downloading pages that you can use. They are printable as well. So yeah, again, feel free to ask me any questions. I've been doing the whole magical journaling, spiritual journaling thing for a long time. And I've learned tons of new things every year, every month. So let's chat about it. And I will see you in the next video.